Hey, what's up? This is Janko with the second live stream of today, which would make the entirety, the total count to increase to 4. I really enjoyed this. I took a couple of hours to actually get some work done with the new MCP server slash prompt template approach that helps me to actually move quite quickly in coding. This was the first one of today. If you want to have a look, check it out. Yeah, hope you like it. The entire thing is hosted on GitHub. Let me actually bring this up. So this is the server in Janko what the fuck MCP -hitch code. This is basically what kind of codifies my prompt template approach so far. You will find the prompt templates in the MCP hitch code directory, templates and prompts. And then I have so-called prompt types that I kind of distinguished or kind of that materialized for my work. And in the live stream, I basically talk a little bit about what they are and why I see them being important for certain like aspects of the coding journey, if you will, whenever you try to implement something. And in this second one for today, I'll just had the impulse to start something that I have actually been contemplating for quite a while now. And it is something completely fuzzy and big and huge, actually. So that's kind of like a disclaimer. I know what I'm about to embark into here. And no, I'm not, what's the word? I'm not insane, or looking for the word, the translation for größenwahnsinnig. Größenwahnsinnig. Oh, megalomaniac. That's something I've never heard before. Wow. So I'm not megalomaniac. This sounds like a robot from the Transformer universe. Megalomaniac. So I'm not that, right? So I know that the sound might sound completely strange, but what is it actually that I want to do? I want to create anti-fragile code, or anti-fragile. In my opinion, the Americans switched it up sometime. When I was learning English, it used to be mobile. Now it's mobile. When I learned English, it was finance. Now it's finance. So I'm not sure how to pronounce anti-fragile. I will probably keep pronouncing it anti-fragile and not anti-fragile or whatever. What this anti-fragile means to me, I will explain in a bit, but I want to try to create code components, kind of like Lego bricks, that are better, more robust, or more resilient than what I currently produce. Let's put it that way. I and the AI. That should be a t-shirt. I and the AI. So myself and the AI. That's what I mean by that. The music will switch it up a little in the other live stream. We had some hardcore synthesizer, not hardcore, but heavy synthesizer vibes and 80s vibes. I'm switching back to lo-fi hip-hop because I kind of need a more, I don't know, a smoother atmosphere here to tackle what I want to at least start tackling. So anti-fragile, what is it? This might have, the concept and the term might have been around way before Nassim Taleb actually wrote the book about it, but that's the first time I encountered it. And I would greatly, if you like his style of thinking, I don't think you need to like him personally, because I like his books better than I sometimes like his actions and how he, kind of behaves on social media. That's two different things for me, I think, at least. The book and his way of thinking are just fascinating to me. I listen to this because I usually listen to books more than I read them, most likely or oftentimes through something like this. Those are my my most important possession after my MacBook and my smartphone, probably, because they basically allow me to have something like a cyborg feature that lets me listen to anything like content while I'm doing other things and still hearing what my surrounding actually does. So however you will consume it or not consume it is just a recommendation. This is one of the audiobooks that I decreased the speed. I usually am when I listen to something. I'm at least at, if I'm like well rested, I'm at like 1.5 or sometimes 2 times the speed. And with this book, I need to decrease that to 0.75 or something, 75 or something like that, because each sentence was so thick with brain food that I had to regularly stop and say, wow, I need to think about this. And this happened in 2018 on a road trip. We had lots of time. I listened to that. And since then, I'm fascinated by this idea of creating anti-fragile stuff, right? And anti-fragile, basically, I put a couple of videos in here. It's basically, well, we can actually leverage, let's leverage. Okay, now you do see I'm experimenting a bit with blurring out some stuff that I might not always like to share. Oh, you've seen it anyways. It's not that there's no secrets in here, but yeah, let's do it anyways. Actually, I can recommend this, even though I don't grok it yet. Zero blur. It's kind of cool to blur things out. Let's summarize the key 5 takeaways of the book Antifragile by Nassim Taleb. And one thing is that anti-fragile systems thrive from chaos, right? So it's not, they're not only robust against change and disorder, they thrive from it or in it. And this is just something so fascinating to me. I'm not sure if the AI will pick it up in the way that I think about it, but embracing volatility and uncertainty. And the big thing for me is embracing it. You don't just try to like hedge against it or hedge against it. I think that's probably the best phrasing here or framing. You try to embrace it, right? So you try to, for me, this has something inherently organic in it. I don't know why. It's really close to the thing called nature for me. And this is just something totally fascinating to me. Yeah, for me, I think the most important part here for now is the second one, embracing volatility rather than trying to predict or avoid unpredictable events. Those typical black swans. This was the first book that I read from Taleb. The book advocates for designing systems and lifestyles that can benefit from volatility, randomness, and uncertainty. This approach allows for potential gains from unexpected positive events while limiting losses from negative ones. And even though this might be a completely stupid idea, my head went to, hey, can't we apply this for coding as well? So can we design code or code components or however code components, modules probably, that would benefit from, that could deal with volatility by benefiting from it? this obviously you're quickly in self-healing and stuff like that, and resilient systems. And I'm not claiming that whatever I'm trying is like in the truest sense, like anti-fragile, so that Mr. Taleb would say, yes, that's an anti-fragile system. Nor would I claim that I can actually do it, right? But I just want to try. And I want to try it in like milestones that have actual impact for my daily work. Because, for example, just to give you I'm way out there. I'm aware, right? To kind of bring us back to earth a little bit, to something real and tangible. I don't fully understand the event loop system in Streamlit apps. And I always struggle, or seem to struggle, whenever I try something that's asynchronous, right? For example, I try to have asynchronous database interactions through SQL Model or SQL Alchemy. Those are two. Maybe let's put that down so I don't forget to actually put something in here on our little Miro board. So those are Python packages, right? SQL Model is basically at least to me, Alchemy. It's a combination. I think the creator of SQL Model also frames it like this, of combining SQL Alchemy and Pydantic. Right, that's, whoa, this is a bit big. This is where this originates from, just to be or to actually make the best out of it, out of using Miro. Let's actually make it a richer experience. So this is the page, the docs from SQL Model, or off SQL Model. And yeah, whenever I try to connect to, for example, Postgres to a Postgres DB, is that the way I write it? I always call it Postgres, not Postgres DB. Doesn't matter. Together with Streamlit, I try to do it in an asynchronous way, which I think makes sense. Then I struggle because of event loops and yeah, all of that stuff, right? And I want to tackle this basically first, and closely attached to this is basically the question: can I come up with modules that are like Lego bricks, so that I can more flexibly build my information systems, if you will, especially when Gen AI agent stuff enters the picture, like workflows from Llama Index, or combining what I want to do with frameworks like LangChain, LangGraph, Langsmith, this entire universe, or Llama Index, or Pydantic agents, or Crew AI, or the thing from Microsoft that I never used but always wanted to. Was it AutoGen? I think, right? And I'll put that in the Miro board later on. So this maybe makes it a bit more, hopefully more tangible. I want to solve stuff that I actually need to deal with, and while solving stuff, this is something I need to deal with here, right? While doing so, put on the meta perspective, or the meta glasses, basically, not the actual meta glasses, perspective wise, right? And I just want to start doing that and keep doing that, and I don't know, live stream or put content out there about it, because I just want to work on this, basically. An initial starting point actually was a video of the Primogen, or Primetime, where he basically talks about the flaws of inheritance as a OOP pattern or thing, right? I have to say, as a disclaimer, I come from R, the programming language. domain-specific language, fully or not fully, but mainly heavily on the functional programming paradigm. You can also do object-oriented programming with it quite well, if you ask me as well. But object-oriented stuff is still feels somewhat new to me, right? I know about the solid principles. I know about Uncle Bob, and I watched like tons of videos like 10 years back already. But I'm always in between functional land and object-oriented land. But obviously, when you develop in an object-oriented way, which Python is predominant basically in Python land, then you soon will jump to inheritance of, structuring your classes and let them inherit from each other. And when I watched this video, basically the video lands on, hey, maybe composition is a much better pattern and not inheritance, right? And I had heard about composition before, but I had never really dug deeper into it. It's related to the solid principles, right? Dependency injection and all that stuff. I just remembered today that back in, I don't even know when this was. It's unfortunately not listed in my chat here. I actually took the transcript of this entire video, fed it into, back then, I think it was Grimoire, right? Which is still, I haven't used it for quite some time, but it's a GPT, like a custom GPT. Let me see if I can showcase that. No, I don't know how to get there. Grimoire GPT. Actually, I just rewatched a live stream, and I think I need to make stuff bigger. I have a huge monitor here, so it's kind of... I think here's the best page probably to showcase Grimoire. It's kind of like a coding agent before coding agents were a thing, or code wizard. So I think this came before Cursor really hitting its stride, before Windsurf. I think definitely GitHub Copilot was already on the spot, but it basically, this was one of the coolest GPTs that came out when OpenAI added this feature that you can create custom GPTs. And it's Grimoire that I asked, hey, this is the transcript. You see it's quite long, obviously. Let's scroll down there. And let's make that page bigger as well. And I'm just looking for my initial prompt. Yeah, I think this is where I started, like mentally, right? Figure out what he thinks, what the Primogen and what the author of the blog post that he's basically live reacting to thinks would be the best implementation, and then contrast that with an inheritance approach. And just asking it, this kind of like lens or tends toward the anti-fragile thing that I want to embark on, this journey of finding something in the middle, right? Maybe this is completely like bullshit for, in this case, of inheritance and composition, because it's well defined. But nevertheless, I think it's a good starting point. And yeah, Grimoire basically states what Primogen dislikes regarding inheritance, and why composition is oftentimes a better approach, or almost always a better approach. And it gives us a couple of examples of how composition is actually, if you choose composition over inheritance, how this might look like, and how an inheritance example would look like. And the problem obviously is tight coupling, right? Tight coupling between the animals that you basically define through inheritance, because they all share the same animal class, but not every animal can do might be able to do stuff that the animal base class does. That's at least how I would loosely describe what the problem here is. And yeah, this was quite good. And it the Pythonic mix basically to have an interface and composition hybrid, because obviously in Python I think there are no true interfaces like in, for example, Java or C# or all those classes that start with a big with an I to make clear this is an interface. But we have abstract classes, right? And we can use them in eventually in the same way to have the same effect as an interface. At least that's how I think of it. And yeah, so I just embarked on this conversation, and I'm not sure if I actually, if something like if I asked about it, I didn't anything anti-fragile like, right? But I think this can be like choosing composition over inheritance. That's basically what I want to start out with. It is for me already something that makes the code less brittle, better maintainable, and thus in some sense also a bit closer to anti-fragile than doing it in other ways, hence in the inheritance style, right? So composition leads typically, I mean, there's obviously there's no such thing as a silver bullet. There's no free lunch. So it's always, you should always be clear about this. Composition typically leads to code that is less brittle and easier to maintain / extend, or extend and maintain. That's why I like it. And today I would just basically try to, in this live stream, to kind of strike the balance between tackling something that I need to solve. This is the event loop stuff. Let me just see if I can find quickly a box that I can draw around this. Oh, here it is already. So this is basically the challenge that I want to solve in a better way. You know, I didn't write this down here. Async with Streamlit. And I'm well aware that there's lots of skill issues involved, how the Primogen always puts it so nicely. So I also want to learn more about all of this that I don't understand yet while doing so. So this is like basically the first thing I want to tackle. I probably will touch on composition over inheritance while doing so, and on the meta. So this is the first thing I want to actually focus on. This is probably the second aspect. Right, composition over inheritance, of how to get it done. And basically the meta aspect, which let's put that down as a 0. Can we, or yeah, let's say anti-fragile as a mindset. Right? What I mean by that is I try to think about brittleness, maintainability, extendability, and thus anti-fragility in all the things I implement. And I want to strive for strike the sweet spot, or the balance between coming up with systematic code modules that, like Lego bricks, that I can use in whatever projects without generalizing too much, right? There's another great YouTube channel that talks about this premature generalization, and how you can, fail by just going down that route, because sometimes it's okay to have spaghetti code, or to have really narrow code that's addressing a really well-defined problem, and not turn it into a generalizable or generalized solution for other things. Because sometimes the second use case just never comes around, right? I think connecting databases and Streamlit is something that still I will encounter quite often in my endeavors. So I want to focus on that. Okay, so let's actually get going with some code. And I just wonder if I should switch to Windsurf for that. Let's see. Before I make that decision, I want to actually ask. So I want to ask Perplexity how to set things up, because I don't want to spend like an eternity setting things up in Windsurf regarding MCP servers. I have a MCP server that is running locally on, make this bigger as well, on localhost 800 SSE. This is a connection type, I think, a protocol, whatever, SSE. So I think this is important. That I successfully connected with Cursor. What do I need to do to hook it up with Windsurf? I just let Pro figure this out. There's other things like deep research, reasoning with R1 and so on, but I think this should be a rather easy one. I just don't want to take the time to actually think through it now. Okay, so the thing is, the mcconfig JSON file, look for toolbar and click the hammer icon. Okay, the config file should be easily accessible. I think it's Cursor also has something like that, but it's rather I don't know. It's not as straightforward, I think, as for Windsurf. So let's try at least. So let's open up Windsurf. It's still in Archon in a forked project by Cole Medine, which I also think is highly interesting, but let's not go there today. Let's just see if I can make it work. There's an error. Okay. Then let's actually open up a new Windsurf. Wait, let's do it like this. I don't know. What do we call that? Antifragile code. I'm not that creative today regarding naming. Obviously, this doesn't exist yet, so this will fail. Oh, I didn't update. That's why. New version. So where is the hammer icon? Wait, I gotta close down my other instances of. Yeah. I still don't know if it's Conrad or Tamas, but yeah, it's kind of like the bonus stream. I feel streamy today. Just saw your comment here. Okay, there, I found the tools. I'm using Archon, already set up Archon, but it's not a stream about Archon. We configure it, and this should actually do the trick here. Just need to find the right. This is hitch code. And let's see. This already does the trick. Loading. Let's see if I actually am running it. I'm running my server through, but it's still running. It should still be running. Let's check real quick by going to... so Conrad, I'm trying to build, I started, so it's probably best to watch the initial intro of what I'm actually setting out to do here. But let me just check if the server is running. Seems like it. So just in a nutshell, there's a book by Nassim Taleb, and it talks about anti-fragile systems, which are systems that benefit from volatility and change. And I'm just asking, since I've read that and since I've watched a couple of other videos, I'm kind of drawn to this problem by, can we write anti-fragile code or code components, code modules, code bricks, whatever you want to call them, that kind of thrive from things being different than when they initially were, what they initially were programmed for, which use case or data pipelines or whatever. Because that's what always happens, right? You write code and then something changes, and then you need to rewrite the code because code is just too brittle. So that's why what I want to kind of work on with a kind of to bring it more down to earth, because I know that this is like a topic that's really out there. By focusing on something really tangible, asynchronous stuff done in Streamlit, which I always have issues with because of the way Streamlit is built with the event loops and the page refreshes and so on and state management and whatnot. So I want to deal with this. This is something I need to, solve for my work, and I like to dive more into composition instead of inheriting inheritance when defining classes, and all with an anti-fragile mindset. So this is basically what I want to do in a nutshell. And at the moment, I'm trying to get hitch code. Context deadline exceeded. Interesting. Maybe the command is not. Should the command be? It's probably curl, right? Return to cascade interface and click refresh. I'm getting a context deadline exceeded. So I'm getting that error in Windsurf. And yeah, I'm also trying out Windsurf, kind of getting back into the Windsurf game after having used or switched back to Cursor basically for the last months. 2 months probably, or most, yeah, something like that. It's taking longer than allowed. Okay. Let's maybe restart it, right? The good old. No, sorry, not that. Just Windsurf. Actually, this is something I was positively surprised by, that in Cursor you do not need to restart your, what's this? Okay. So maybe it's the command, maybe it needs to be SSE or something else, but we do in fact probably do a curl request against our locally running server. Yeah, maybe bring up the docs. If I don't get it working in like 1 or 2 minutes, then we're just using Cursor. Oh, hitch code, no tools. Interesting. So in fact, it seems to be working per se, but it doesn't list the tools. Yeah, probably not going to solve that today. Context deadline exceeded, but so then let's actually jump to Cursor, which I know it works. Maybe for the people that have never seen or watched a live stream and are completely which I completely lost by talking about MCP servers. So I would highly recommend you checking out MCP as a framework, because it's basically you can give tools and or skills, I usually think of them as skills, to your, let's make this bigger as well, to your coding agents on the right hand side basically. And I just developed a little MCP server that has some tools for applying prompt templates, and by the means of an MCP server you can give those tools to whatever code module you want to use. For in my case, it's most typically it's Claude 3.5 Sonnet, not the thinking one, the regular one. 3.5 one Sonnet was also amazing, and so I'm getting actually really good results with 3.7 as well. And yeah, so that's the thing that I know works. You can watch my other live streams on how to set this up, or just basically go to my GitHub repo, because it uses a fork. Sorry, this was one too much up in the hierarchy. It uses a MCP server template by Kirill Markin that basically gives you a hello world MCP server with everything needed, with all bells and whistles to deploy this on Heroku. I haven't tried that out yet, but everything that you need to do in order to make it, to use it with your Cursor or Windsurf installation or IDE, even though I failed with the latter one. And I'm basically using it as described here through Docker. So I'm launching it through Docker Compose and connecting to it locally because it's running at a certain port. Right, so let's just do the following. We open up a new instance of, back to Windsurf. Let's close Windsurf, sorry. I don't have my shortcut game down today. We open a new Cursor project, and it's going to be the folder, or in the folder that we just created, so Antifragile code. And let's do also the following. So I could have done that. Let me just do that in private real quick, because I need to copy some code that have some work implications. I don't want to spill the beans. Just a sec. Here we are. So we copy the source folder. So we create a new folder in here and call that reference. And into that we copy our little installation of basically a tool that I created. It's kind of working, but it has those issues that I described in the beginning of asynchronous database calls in conjunction with Streamlit. And I want to put that here as a reference because I want to refactor that, right? This is the thing that's keeping it close to reality, hopefully, and doing something meaningful. And what I will also do is to actually go back and copy at least parts of our Grimoire conversation here to kind of have let's actually make it consumable through this should work. I just copy the link, and with the web search functionality we can just do the following. This is just to get up and running, right? To set up. Let's use the thinking model here. And I would just say, I actually don't need to do that. I just need to copy in the URL. You see it's automatically highlighted. So cursor will instruct the Claude model to, let's make this actually bigger because I think it's much easier to read then. Maybe even one more in the stream. To actually, make a web search, right? To the URL that you just put down there. And I would just instruct it to say, let's voice type this. I have a conversation that centers around how composition is oftentimes better than inheritance. I would like you to grok the main takeaways here, especially when it comes to Python code, and manifest or materialize your key takeaways in a markdown file. Yeah, let's leave it at that. I will markdown file in a markdown file called let's call that ref timestamp composition over inheritance markdown. And now I just need to think about what the best way of structuring this is. Reference, let's put it directly inside the reference folder in the reference. Sometimes this is not it's not available yet. So I think what I usually do then is, so I cannot reference the folder. Sorry, I should finish my sentences. So I think this has to do with resyncing the code base, which is not has not been triggered yet or not been updated yet. So that's why I'm going back into the cursor settings. In the feature section, you can trigger the code base indexing, which basically means making your code agent, in this case, it switched back to Sonnet from the thinking model. I don't know if you noticed. I did. The live stream can serve as testimony for that. I did already select Sonnet thinking, and it switched back the model. Sometimes that happens. I don't know if there's some determinism behind this, but syncing your code base makes your code agent, your model, aware of your code base, right? And whenever you have the feeling that something is missing, you cannot reference something, I would suggest you go in the settings and just trigger a resync. Then it should. Demonstration effect. It's not available yet. Sometimes let's really put it to the test here. Let's copy that and start a new conversation. You can do that up here or with a shortcut, Command N. You can always also see which conversation you are in. Interesting. Now sorry. God. What's happening? Where's my message? Okay. Well, there hasn't been that much of a message, so let's start over again. Let's actually see if we can reference the... Oh, maybe because it's called reference. I'm just realizing that. Yeah, might... let's actually call this... Let's call this ref. And see... Maybe I need to rename it completely. I'm not sure. Yeah, exactly. Trying to combine philosophy and coding. Exactly. Decoupledness is, I spot that in nature everywhere. I'm having loosely coupled systems that still realize something of importance or get a job done basically. And no, you grokked it correctly, right? I'm just reading through the latest comment here. So that's how I think about anti-fragile coding. And as I said, this might be too much for me to tackle, but it's the mindset that I want to apply here. And sorry, this is taking so long here. I just wanted to reference it, but obviously I can also type it out or type it in a different way. Let's try one more time. If it has the ref folder, it's not able to find it. Okay, I think it has to do with the name reference. So this URL references a conversation about favoring composition over inheritance. I want you to digest it, and especially the part related to Python code, and materialize your key takeaways and reasoning in a markdown document. I think this is more or less what we had before. Sorry about the hiccups here and there, but that's live streaming. I think. I mean, it's the fourth one. Not an expert yet, by no means, but in document ref timestamp. Composition over inheritance, MD, in directory. Let's just do it like that. That should work. Your reference conversation about favoring composition over inheritance. I want you to adjust it. All parts related to Python code and materialize your key takeaways and reasoning in a markdown document. In the markdown document, right? This should suffice. Let's use thinking though. Interesting. It switched also to normal mode. So always be sure this agent mode is set when you want to do agentic stuff with cursor with the composer feature. And let's just see how that works. So what should happen now is that the coding model should actually access my conversation. Interesting. It's calling MCP fetch, which is not one of my tools that I developed, but I think it's calling, let's see, it's either calling or making it explicit what it can already do, like what's already built into it, into Cursor, because of the company behind Cursor. I don't even know which company that is, to be honest. It's Codium for Windsurf, but I don't know. I think it's Cursor. So however it may be, interesting. So maybe let's try to do not use any MCP tools for checking the URL. There's a slight chance that what I just said actually is not true, that it's not something built in. Yeah, it's not something built in. I could have reasoned about that myself, because MCP fetch is something that's, I think, built into the MCP server template that I'm using. So, but the rest is already looking good. It's not asking me for a timestamp. It's reasoned about that it can use this date function. And now this is, even though it's a bit different than the format that I usually use for my timestamps to make them a bit more legible, it's, it works. I need to keep an eye on the clock here, because at 1:45 I need to jump, basically. All right, and then it puts down what it thinks, so it being 3.5 Sonnet thinking, what it thinks, what it's kind of draw from the conversation here, that it's basically referenced or tried to digest. Where does it happen? I'm not sure if it actually does, to be honest. Oh, it did. So here, I think this I think shows that it actually read my conversation or went through my conversation. We could also check this, but it's not about that, right? In particular, I just want that to have as sort of a reference document. Okay, so then let's actually get going by making sure we are in a completely new conversation. And that's just something I always check, basically. What do I want to start out with? I think DB layer. Yeah. So this might not be going into the anti-fragile code from the get-go, but it's, as I said, it's a combination of something I need to tackle for work in a generalizable way. And I think I want to start off with that. So I don't need that game plan or that ref document. It's not a game plan. And let's do the following. Call the init prompt tool. What this is, you can look at it in my other live stream, but maybe just for showing it once more, it's one of the tools that are part of my MCP server that basically use prompt templates in just the way that I want it to be used. And now I need to frame the actual problem or objective. Consider the overall preference of composition over inheritance laid out. I think it's written like that, laid out in. Interesting. I cannot reference. That kind of sucks. I cannot reference this. I'll just put it like, just pull it in here. Laid out in this document. And let's also, there's lots of stuff already defined from my previous attempts to kind of craft the tool I need for work, or the tool basically, which defines a certain way of dealing with the database or interacting with the database with a repository pattern. But I'm jumping too far ahead. I'm just here. I just want to make the model know. Also consider the implemented components / modules in DB. I hope this at least works. Yeah. I would like you to first answer, develop the way. It's kind of hard to frame. Let's do it differently. I typically struggle with asynchronous modules such as DB interactions when using Streamlit because of the way Streamlit is built regarding its event loop, state management, etc. What I forgot to bring in here is the anti-fragile part. I do want that to be part of the initial conversation. So let me just think of how to best bring in that fact. Maybe let's just share this convo from Perplexity. Then copied. Let's do the following. We copy this and just put in a little temp document here, so we don't forget our code or our prompt. And let's actually start off with, let's rename this to ref antifragile. And much as we, how did we phrase it? Something like this. Copy that over. Sorry for the jumping about here, but I still have not structured my own. This must be a UI bug. I cannot copy between conversations, which sucks. Okay, so then let's voice type this. I want to assess if we can write code that is inspired by the concept of anti-fragility as coined by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Here's a Perplexity search on that highlights the main takeaways. And then let's copy the convo once more. Please try to assess the benefits of using this philosophy in writing Python code. Let's make it really explicit for the model. Synthesize your learnings or your thoughts, reasoning in Markdown file, ref, timestamp, antifragile, MD, in directory. Let's see if it's available now. Yeah, somehow it took a while to materialize. Do not use any MCP tools for accessing the convo. And let's actually throw in a little web search. How anti-fragility might be beneficial in writing. How an anti-fragility mindset might be beneficial in writing Python code. Yeah, this should suffice. And off we go. Yeah, thanks for being okay with the messiness. It's probably it's the first live stream that I have the least idea of how I would actually what I would actually do, but it's kind of fun to have the camera rolling while doing so. So it feels a bit weird to put myself out on a limb here, because I in no means have thought this through completely. And yeah, it's cool. Thanks for being okay with that journey. It's a journey. It's gonna be, not every live stream is obviously going to be about this, but it's going to be a thing I just want to start today in doing this anti-fragility thing. Also ties perfectly into the messiness of Gen AI and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Gen AI Galaxy or the Hitch coder thing. So yeah. Okay, key principles of antifragility and the reasoning of the model, the short reasoning basically of how this could actually tie into Python code. So we have our two reference documents here that we can always reference in whenever it makes sense to us. And now we can actually jump back to the actual composer message that I was about to craft. Oh no, you gotta be kidding me. That's another UX fail. I need to copy this over. If I don't want it referenced like above in that style, I need to copy things into the text window here, line by line. What just happened? Consider MD. No. So it needs to be sentence by sentence for some reason. And I tried all the hacks, putting the stuff in a text document outside of cursor and then copying it. It seems to be that way somehow. So consider the overall preferences laid out in... this one is weird. This one might have accidentally entered the picture. Consider the overall preference laid out in... Now that's better. Also consider the mindset of philosophy of anti-fragile or laid out of anti-fragility as laid out in this reference document. Also consider what I already did regarding DB access and yeah, I always struggle with asynchronous mode. So I'm trying to create a DB interaction module that is well generalized in the sense that it can deal with both sync and async interaction patterns modes. And I just had another thought. What was that thought? Oh yeah, I forgot one important thing, and it would open up a can of worms here if I'd done it like completely. So I just want to give you the gist and see how we can actually make it work, hopefully in our... Oh, this is the wrong one. Sorry. This one is the one that I wanted to use. The other one is a pet project of doing an expense manager, basically a Streamlit app that is able to categorize and analyze my expenses, my bank transaction statements. But here I wanted to touch on a prompt template that's pretty new and it's not polished yet. And it has to do with the infrastructure that I would like to use. Let's actually copy this entire thing over to our other code project and maybe just highlight a couple of things. So what is this infra prompt template about? I want to use that to make the model know about my infrastructure. Meaning, for example, I want to use UV as dependency manager. I want to use SQL model as the ORM package or framework. What databases do we want to use, and so on, right? What linter should be used? how do my GitHub actions what do I see? Which environments do I see? So I usually typically think in development, staging / testing, and production environments. And so there's lots of stuff. Let's cut it short. There's lots of stuff that deals with my infrastructure that I like to use, and I want the model not to guesstimate about what I want to use, but give it to the model, right? And I'm striving for the best way of making that work. Obviously, if you take a look at my cursor rules here, I did put down lots of stuff already. Development environment setup. I'm using Mac OS. I want to use Poetry, SQL model here. Package manager, we use Poetry. I'm actually in the middle of jumping to UV or testing out UV more and more. So obviously there's a bit of a conflict, but yeah, I could do it here or I could do it in a prompt template. And right now I probably, how do I do that? So my son, ready? Okay. I actually need to jump now because my son is going to Carnival. I will continue with this thing once I got the time. So sorry for ending it so soon. I will put up the stuff as soon as possible for you to follow along if you want to follow along. For now, unfortunately, you are basically bound to kind of digest or make sense of what I put on Miro. But yeah, stay tuned for round 2, at least, for making the start at least something that's self-contained, right? And as I said in the beginning, this is going to be a journey. So I hope you follow along, or you want to follow along. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.